Smoke and
I
mirrors.
remember you saying actually, you used to find just the right stuff, I think, and that was intuitively, wasn't it? And that's
Yeah,
really
I'm just
great. It's synchronicity.
guided. Just, I
Yeah,
mean, I say
yeah,
guided. I don't know how else to
mm,
explain how I would be. Some of the reference materials, you know, are 4 or 5 volumes in
yeah,
size, ranging from 400, 600 pages, 1,300 pages, and I'm guided. I'm not just saying like looking up through the table of contents or anything like that. I mean, I'm literally guided to a page and a particular paragraph, and it just flows.
yeah.
And there have been a couple of points where I thought I'd found references because I was having to do a lot of research into the different peculiarities between the four nations and obviously Ireland being you know a political division between North and South, but obviously trying to understand in antiquity how the law had been in operation and some of their old natural laws that pre-existed before common law was introduced um, through occupation. Um, it was finding things that just didn't add up, like official translations from ancient Gaelic and the original translators that had devoted 30, 40 years of their lives to translating things officially, and then the preface of the book just didn't sit because it was written by somebody else after the death of like these 3 or 4 translators. And you go, hang on, this doesn't, do you throw the whole book out? And then I was guided, and I literally, I was looking, I normally work with 2 screens because of the amount of documents and things. And I just was guided, and I just asked, can someone just give me a nudge?
Mm.
And I was just innately look at the other screen, and oh, hang on a minute, there's some other documents I hadn't looked at, and I found a Regis professor of law of the exact period that these translations were done in the mid to late 1800s, calling out in his own lectures the exact same things that my gut was telling me weren't right. And it was like, it was just a gift really to be able to make sense. So I didn't have to throw out everything,
Mm.
all of the reference material. So,
Well, it
but
saves
yeah,
you
so I do,
time and it
so I do,
makes your work a lot more accurate as well, which is great, isn't it? Really.
yeah.
So,
Because part of the problem was I was guided very, very quickly in the early part of writing things. And it was like, oh, hang on a minute. I'm gonna have to join the dots for people. They're not going to understand what I've written.
mm,
I've pulled bits of text where it took me a lot of time to actually go back and find the original text and document it, so in the book I've joined and connected the dots for people, and that was very um, important for me to be transparent because I've said in the book, if I've got something wrong, I'm quite happy to change it. You've got to provide me consistent evidence because there's a lot of inconsistent evidence that portrays what is the current narrative that's pushed by our government and parliament, or has been for the last few hundred years, that just doesn't stack up. And so that's the gift really from myself. And I'm writing the second edition at the moment as well. And one of the biggest problems is every time I turn over a stone,
mm.
there's another £50 note under it. I'm not finding things that are contradicting what I've written already. I'm actually finding more gold, more insight. And
Speaking of which, your book is priced at £2.22 pence.
22.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. So
which is cool.
uh,
So
so
two two
originally,
two.
so originally I was just going to make it available for £1, and a
Mm.
friend convinced me. Hang on, you've got bank fees, you've got hosting fees, you've got all the other, and so
Mm.
you know, um, because I pushed it out earlier, I would have liked to have just sort of made it available um, for free, but there's an old thing of people don't attribute any value to something, and then
Yeah, people who read it
afterwards,
won't read it if it's
with
free.
an exchange of energy, and obviously that helps me to because I've I've devoted the last 3 years to helping people, and my own reserves are pretty you know,
Can you do the next
limited.
book, 666, £6.66?
Well, actually, the list price was £12.15, obviously for Magna Carta, or the Great Charter of 1215, being our constitution. I'm not sure about what, because the second edition I am making available as printed book, because there's just a lot of older people that don't read things on a screen and find it difficult, even though it's in a PDF format, and you can with Adobe Acrobat get it to read the text back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and but it was just a timing thing. I was just under pressure when I uploaded it to Amazon and Barnes and Noble for their print on demand service, after meeting all their various rigors to make it the right format. It was made live, and then they corrupted all the formatting. So it just forced me down a route that I had to make it available on my own website. And I know a lot of people said, "Oh, I don't like the fact you're charging for it." And I'm like, it just enables me to be able to write the second edition, to keep researching.
And it pays for your time, which, let's face it, you're probably on like kind of peasant wage from the 1600s, which I'm sure you know about.
But it's not about, for me, it's not about the money, because it's about transforming people's lives.
Yeah.
The message for me was, my rewards will come after I've transformed those people's lives. So my rewards will come much later. And if we ascend to the point that money isn't relevant anymore, so those will be my rewards.
I think so. I mean, your other half loves Nasara Jasara, so you've got your good couple together, really. Speaking of which, I wanted to touch actually on something that was probably quite relevant to a lot of members on Bogfrog or whatever, whoever else is watching this. And you have had a divorce, which often is, it's just the way people change. You said you had a spiritual awakening. Your other half didn't quite get it, I suppose, and you drifted apart. I've noticed there's a lot of people I know, including my own mother, who has partners that don't really get it, and that's happened. How hard was that, to live with someone that doesn't really understand you anymore, someone you love, especially with children?
Yeah, I spent years. Obviously, there was my brain injury, which was quite traumatic on the family, because my two youngest sons were only like 2 and 4 at the time, and so there was, outwardly I didn't look any different, but obviously internally, I after the brain injury, I was a cycle of depression and what have you, which I wasn't aware of before. That's quite common with brain injuries and stuff. So every family has its problems, and you work through them and all the rest of it. But I guess that one element did come as quite a surprise to me when it was fed back that I didn't like the way that my spirituality had developed, and I definitely shouldn't involve the children. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like you asking me to be not 100% of myself all of the time, even when I'm at home. And I'd had a long period of dumbing myself down to meet the next project. So rather than, for a long time, I didn't tell clients and people that, I ran, I had a serviced office business. I had a video conference bureau, as well as this multinational telecoms IT consultancy practice. And excuse me. And so I felt like I'd for years had been dumbing myself down about just fitting in whatever image that people wanted of me. And I think I read it somewhere that your own vision of who you are is not the way that everyone else sees you. So you can pick, 10 or 12 different people, and everyone that meets you has a different perception of who you really are. And I'd got to a point in my life where I wasn't going to dumb down anymore. I was tired of constraining who I was and my true abilities, and I guess it's even when because I produced a few films as well, and even during the launch of one, it was phenomenal. In the first week, we had 100,000 people watch it all online, and I still even then had imposter syndrome. So I'm going off topic a little bit. What I'm just trying to say is, because I had this spiritual awakening as well as an awakening in myself of that I am. So my brain injury left me with this unbounded and unlimited mindset that I can achieve anything, and I don't think I'm unique in that. And I just have to show and shine a mirror and show to other people that you have this ability too. And you've just been told for too long that you can't.
Yeah.
Or, no one in our family's ever gone to university, or whatever it might be. Whatever the thing is that you've been told, and you're told often enough, you tend to believe it. So your belief system starts to change. And so my belief system then was that, well, I'm not limited in my ability. I'd actually invested the time on the spiritual development, personal development side, was because I could see the spiritual development in my children and their natural spiritual abilities, and my eldest son was 3 when my father died, but he'd spoken to him every night, and he could sense things, and I didn't want him growing up being told, oh, that's weird, that's not, it's in your mind, or it's something else. And so I thought, well, I need to go on my own spiritual journey to be able to support them. So when my ex-wife then said, well, you certainly can't be spiritual in the house anymore, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? It's like saying to somebody, you can only be a tenth of what you are, of who you are and who you've recognized yourself to be. And that was quite difficult. Especially around the spiritual bit, because I was like, okay, well, I don't have a choice. Not involving the children, they're going to have their own experiences. I don't control that. All I can do is support them. So that's quite profound for me. I'm not sure if that was the only thing. I mean, that whole COVID period was very challenging for everybody. And I know.
You had a 3 Emmy award-winning film that you executively produced?
Yeah, that was Dreamer.
That must have been wow.
So that was started in 2019 when we first started the filming, and it was filmed in different blocks because we were essentially, that you get to watch the film. We're telling the story of different people, of how they held on to their dreams from a young age, not been put off, and have gone on to impact tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people's lives in a positive way. And it was about, for me, that was the purpose of that was because I was recognizing that I needed to reach people in a different way from what I had been, with this whole goal of transforming 3 billion lives. We have to give the people the ability to dream and be creative. And oddly enough, because obviously all the lockdowns happened, we hadn't finished filming. I'd just flown back from LA from some filming, and then lockdowns happened. And so fortunately, because most of the film crew are based in the US, and so they were able to go by road to film some of the last little bits, and then the editing team managed to get it. He got an Emmy award in his own right for the film, and rightly so, because he managed to pull it all together. And when we launched it, it was in the summer of 2020, and a lot of the feedback was, oh my God, this is so needed right now. How did you know? Did you make this film specifically for now? It was just, no, it wasn't. It was just the timing of everything. But obviously, because of all the lockdowns and everything else, so I wasn't even able to go to the any of the award ceremonies that have happened since, because obviously my philosophical belief in my bodily autonomy was at odds to that of the US government, so I was not permitted to travel there. And so that was quite quite. I'm very proud of that. Actually, I'm very proud of the
Yeah,
film.
you should be. Well
And
done. Well, it's amazing. You did something. Was it Brian Tracey film or something I've seen?
but the interesting thing on my journey was I'd meditated in the October before these opportunities of writing the book with him, and then doing his making his life story in film. And I'd meditated that I would not just be on a stage, I would be on an equal footing with Brian Tracey and Jack Canfield, who's two sort of leading lights amongst others in my personal development. And lo and behold, I got a phone call out of the blue. It was about something completely unrelated, but then it led on to working with Brian Tracey, and I almost turned that down first off because I didn't feel that I was worthy. And then I was offered would I work and help produce his life story, and I turned it down primarily because the principal filming was going to be done around the time that my third son, my youngest son, was due to be born, and even though it was a month early, all my sons came early. So and he wasn't any different. I was literally coming back. I was transiting through. I flew back from San Diego and transiting through New York, and I pick up a message to say I'm in labour. My ex-wife saying she was in labour, so all these things. But again, that came about through meditation and manifesting.
So also, Edward, you've you say that you kind of wanted to reach your potential, that you were being held back. You actually co-executive produced a 3 Emmy award-winning film, didn't you?
I did.
That's amazing.
I did.
That's unbelievable. How did that happen?
Oh gosh. Well, there was a preemption of that because it was the same team that I'd worked with when we produced Brian Tracy's life story, which is called Maximum Achievement, the Brian Tracy story.
That was 2011, wasn't it?
No, that was 2016.
Oh, sorry, 2016.
Yeah, 2016. That's when we did the principal filming for it.
Yeah.
That got a Gold Telly Award, as you can see in the background, for that. But then, because I'd worked with the director, who's a multi-Emmy award-winning guy anyway, and it's the same team, so he already knew what my background was and what my drive and my mission was. And so when the opportunity came up to make the film Dreamer, I just, it just fitted and ticked all the boxes for me. So so we started filming that in 2019, and then there were principally most of the film was done around the US and Canada, and we ended up, COVID hit, so we just done the last bit of filming in LA. I flew back, and then sort of COVID started, and we then had to try and, the film crew ended up getting sent out, just the cameraman on his own doing the sound as well as everything else, to do some various bits of footage, and then the editor, to his credit, managed to pull it all together ahead of time, and he got an Emmy award for his part in it as well. And yeah, it was good. I mean, but the thing is, it's people talk about imposter syndrome, and I had, even during the week, we did an online premiere in the July of 2020. I forget how many 100,000 people that had joined for free online, and halfway through the week, we're getting phenomenal feedback and everything else, and I'm still putting myself down, thinking, I'm not worthy. And this is something of my own journey that I've had to sort of and it's even those people that we put, I've worked with a lot of people, and you talk to them and they go, yeah, we all go through that phase. You just have to ease yourself into and believe in the successes that you have and the achievements and what have you. And it doesn't matter, whether it's it doesn't matter if it's an Emmy award or something, far less grandiose, as it were. We all just have to believe in ourselves, hold on to our dreams, be creative, and I'm firmly of this unlimited, unbounded mindset that we're all capable of far more than we ever intended or ever thought we could possibly be. And
that does come largely from the school system when people are put against each other. But having said that, we are very privileged, and I think the school systems, the way teachers are trained, the way teachers can teach, although they're restricted in the content, has also changed big time. Because I went to quite a strict private school with boarding school as well. But I mean, downstairs I've got a postcard which arrived yesterday from the teacher, handwritten, saying, "Well done, Edward. You're absolutely brilliant. The whole class is so enamored, whatever, to listen to your amazing stories and stuff. All the best." And and that helps, doesn't it? For when people are older too. So I remember Jackie White was on stage the other day, wasn't she? When we were both working together, and I was not expecting her to mention me at all, let alone go reel through a list of Bogfrogs. And to me, Bogfrog is just, I did it in the evening, and it's just built on that, really. I don't see it as anything that special, and I don't see myself as special. I don't see a problem in that, actually, because you stay humbled. Before we started this chat, we were talking about egos and big names and stuff, and how it can distract, I think, sometimes, if you've got a big head about what you're doing, especially from the spiritual and supernatural. So it is what it is, and I think it's different personalities take that kind of thing in different ways, and I think we're quite similar, because I'm a hyper focuser as well, much to the detriment of my marriage. If you give me something, I mean, like, you came over yesterday for a tea, and that patio is full of crap, and it looks like a brand new patio now, and I just nailed it in an hour or two.
One of my, I think it's about recognizing what would be termed as your weaknesses, or one inherent trait that I got from my father is very stubborn, to the point if my mum would ask him to do something, he'd deliberately not do it or do the opposite. I've had a little bit of that in my life, but I recognize that I use that stubbornness to stay focused, to be a dog with a bone, not let things lie, and that hyper focus does pay off. That willingness to put the extra mile in on something pays dividends later on, even if you don't really understand why you're doing it at the time.
My respect for you really comes down to the fact that you work so hard and you don't expect any major rewards from it. You just get on with it and you don't go around shouting about it. I mean, it's something that needs to be done. It's the work, a bit like Pam and all the stuff she does, giving money away to the People's Health Alliance. She doesn't have to do that, but she knows that money will be put to good use. All of that,
And it doesn't have to be a monetary thing. Over the last 3 years, I've not been focused on money at all. I've been very focused on my spiritual aspects, but also about, I guess it was my rewards, some of the feedback that I've had through meditations and downloads and that. Your reward will come once you've started transforming started to transform some of those 3 billion lives. And so part of my ego, the last threads of it, were probably in the late 2019, because I just felt something I was on the precipice of something, and I thought it was a personal journey in October, and I thought I was stood there, and I just felt like I was stood on the edge of something big, and and I felt I was on this timeline, and I needed to push myself to meet some deadline that I didn't know what the deadline was or anything else. And we were doing the dream, and I'm at the dreamer moving, and I'm asking, just give me a sign, just show me something that I'm on the right path, that I'm not going down a blind alley. I just felt like I didn't have time to waste, and that whole period and then we went into lockdowns and everything else, has taught me, because all I was getting was trust the process, and I think a lot of people get that feedback, trust the process, and that was the last remnants of what little ego I did have, of wanting to know the outcome of something, or so rather than just using blind faith, and knowing that the right connections will be made, the right information will be revealed to you, the right opportunities will be made known to you when you need to know them. And whether that was part of the nail in the coffin of my marriage, I don't know, was the fact that I'd taken on board that that belief system of just something will turn up. But ironically, it reminded me of pre-brain injury. I had that total thing. I went through life just assuming, or just knowing that, if something didn't work out, something else would replace it. And, it was not a big drama, just got on with it and done it. And I'd kind of lost that at some point. And it's all sort of coming back, and I'm seeing the same patterns that I had when I was hyper successful with my different businesses and that before the brain injury. And I see the patterns repeating themselves. So I'm very grateful for the traumas and the dilemmas and the heartaches that have come into my life, because it just reinforced that whole process of trusting in yourself, trusting that the universe has got your back. Don't play victim mode. Why is it happening to me? Think of it, thankfully this is happening to me. It's something. What have I got to learn from this exercise? And if it keeps repeating, you've obviously not learned anything. And I've had these conversations with myself over the last 12 years. As this new person, this new side to me has come about, really.
For myself, as well as the rest of the group, it's a privilege not only to know you as a person, but see how your projects are unfolding in front of us, because you put so much time, energy, and effort to what you do, and you don't generally ask for anything back. And I think that's so special. And if everyone did 10% of what you've done, I think this whole community, the rest of the world, would be a very much different place, and we get to 5D a lot quicker. So thank you so much, and I'm absolutely so pleased that you've come to talk to me today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm no one special. I'm just leading the way, I guess, in some areas. You
certainly are, and one day you'll believe it. So thanks so much. Have a lovely afternoon.
And to you. Take care now.
Thanks, Emma.